From the heart of Nebraska's capital city, this is the Nebraska Family Alliance Report. Here's your host, Nate Groz.
A state is only as strong as its families, and strong families start with strong, God-honoring marriages. But we know strong marriages don't happen by accident. Today, we're joined by special guests to talk about why marriage matters and the significance of marriage ministry. I'm Nate Groz, Executive Director for Nebraska Family Alliance, and for over 20 years, NFA has partnered with our friends at FamilyLife to promote the annual Weekend to Remember Marriage Conference. We want to help strengthen and restore marriages in Nebraska. And I'm thrilled to be joined once again by our friends Bob and Pam Stelter from FamilyLife to not only talk about this incredible event, but also the significance of marriage in our society and how the church can engage further in marriage ministry. So Bob and Pam, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, great to be with you, Nate. Thank you so much for you and all that NFA does. It's always a blessing to be with you. Want to talk a lot about We Can Remember, but also following up We Can Remember. What happens the rest of the year?
Yeah, we're really excited to get to share. I have got to attend the Weekend to Remember conference with my wife, and I had heard a lot about it. I always heard great things, but getting to go and experience it ourselves was very impactful, and we were incredibly blessed by our time, not only at the conference, but then taking what we learned and gained that weekend and applying it to our marriage going forward. And we want to continue to see healthy marriages in our state because we know that there are so many challenges that couples face. And marriage can take work, but it's also, one of the main institutions that God created, not only for our good, but for the good of society, for the family, for kids. And so this is such an important thing for people to get to engage with. And so first, can you just share with our listeners about this year's Weekend to Remember conference? What are the dates? How can people get registered or learn more about this conference?
Well, it's kind of an exciting year because FamilyLife is going on 50 years of Weekend to Remembers. And so we're going to have 46 events through the spring. And Omaha is going to be on March 13th through the 15th, and Lincoln is May 15th through the 17th. We have special rates. We actually will have a half-price offer going on now through January 26th. And then we have special active military rates and pastor rates.
It's definitely a meaningful experience going from Friday evening through Sunday.
Yeah, for Friday, just a couple hours on Friday night, they talk about the dream of a marriage, and they unpack what are threats to oneness and what God's plan is for their marriage. Often we have couples that are coming in that don't want to be there, but God uses those times to really work on their hearts, to help them learn, grow, and want to stay and find out what's going on for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, and so Friday is the dream of marriage, and Saturday kind of takes a look at the forgotten dream. We get married, we had these great ideas, the honeymoon was there, and then the rest of our marriage starts, and sometimes we fall into that forgotten dream, as Pam talked about the threats that come in to threaten our oneness in marriage. And Saturday we begin to unpack that and have these conversations and hear from the speakers from their own personal stories who share very transparently and authentically some of the challenges they've had and how to work through that from a biblical perspective. And then we wrap up on a Sunday through about 12:30.
Yeah, and so Sunday is basically making the dream a reality, experiencing breakouts for blended families, husbands, and for wives. And then we cast a vision for marriage that's bigger than happily ever after, but leaving a godly legacy.
Importantly, Saturday night is date night. And so one of the things that we do with the couples is hand them an envelope containing some stationery and tips on handwriting a love letter to one another as part of their date night. I mean, how frequently do we handwrite love letters anymore these days? It's really a meaningful experience.
Yeah, something we all could probably do more frequently. But I love, hearing some of the stories and testimonies and seeing what God is doing through Family Life and through Weekend to Remember, are there any stories or testimonies that have stood out to you over the years or more recently from some of these Weekend to Remember conferences?
Yeah, we have from Minneapolis this last year, a pretty incredible one. I'll just point this out here real quick as Pam shares that story from the Minneapolis event. This last fall, we had 26 Weekend to Remember events, and we had more than 17,000 guests attending those. What's interesting to consider, our mission, especially related to Weekend to Remember, is effectively developing godly marriages and families who change the world one home at a time. Well, 17,000 people across the country is falls in line with effectively developing, but the godly marriages and families piece, we discovered that through this last fall, more than 300 people indicated placing their faith in Christ, which is just amazing to be a part of that through the Weekend to Remember. And then we're going to talk a little bit about this as we go along, Nate, is the who changed the world one home at a time. But it starts with stories like this one.
Yeah, so at the Minneapolis event, this couple entered the ballroom among more than 1,000 guests. Their marriage was hanging on by a thread, and divorce papers were sitting in their car. It seemed, an irreparable, yet they were still searching to find hope for their marriage. Enter our faithful God. Through the weekend, the incredible happened. They rediscovered the dream they once had for their marriage. They learned practical ways to navigate challenges and rediscover intimacy. Most importantly, they realized the key of their unity lay not in themselves, but in God. And you know what they did with those divorce papers? They handed them to the speakers, and they asked the speakers to burn them. And so our speaker team shared with us burning those papers in their fire pit, which was just an incredible story.
Yeah, I mean, wow. God is restoring and strengthening marriages. That matters so much because there are so many lies about marriage in our culture and in our society and how it's depicted on TV and online. And, God's word is so clear, and he gives us the roadmap for why we have marriage and what marriage should be and the roles that men and women are called to within marriage. And that matters for us individually, but also for entire families and communities. Marriage really is the building block on which our society and civilization rests. And there are just so many attacks on marriage and the family. And so to have, this dedicated ministry, focused on strengthening and restoring marriages, I think is so needed. So Bob, what about for you? I know you and Pam have been a part of this through Family Life for many years. How has this been for the two of you? What have you seen maybe within your own marriage or people that who have gotten plugged in and fought against, those lies that we hear about marriage?
Yeah, great question, Nate. And interestingly, for Pam and me both, we grew up in homes that had significant troubles. I came here from Southern California to compete on the gymnastics team, and that's where I met Pam my sophomore year. I went home after my freshman year. My parents had divorced, and very strange. And one thing that I particularly enjoyed about being in Nebraska, it was a family, not just a team. It was actually a family. That was something I so longed for. Pam and I, when we got married, we say we knew more of what we did not want than what we did want. And when we first attended a Family Life event, it wasn't a Weekend to Remember at the time. It was an arena event called I Still Do. 9,000 people were at that event. And we came back from that event with two thoughts. One is, I wish we had known this sooner. And the second thought was, we want to tell everybody we know about this. And so we started a small group right away. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what book was what chapters were what in the Bible, but we just knew we wanted to do something to share this good news, to share God's design for marriage and family, to share the blessing that we had received. And we went on from there to lead many, many small groups with the help of our pastor. And one of the things that we discovered, Nate, and I'm sure you know this, being in life groups or small groups, is that community. And you realize that you're not alone in your challenges and your struggles, and you have some others to talk to who can relate and encourage and pray with you. And it's really not only an encouragement, but an exhortation. You said in a different conversation that sometimes marriage can feel hard work, but it's actually worth it. And it takes a lot of that effort and time to see the marriage that God has for us.
Yeah, that's well said. And, I want to turn a little bit toward sort of the heart behind marriage ministry and the need for it, even within the church, right? Because I think most often when we think about marriage ministry or mentoring or helping married couples, most often the emphasis is actually before the marriage even starts with, pre-marriage counseling or mentoring, which is critically important and very needed. But that draws a lot of the attention and focus. But then the couples actually get married and their marriage begins. And sometimes there's not as much of that support there. So could you talk a little bit about what you're seeing and the why behind what FamilyLife and you all are doing with marriage ministry and how the church can play maybe a bigger role in supporting God's design for marriage and family?
Yeah, well, I used an athletic analogy already once. I'll use one more. It would be a little bit like, as a gymnast, I enjoy watching other athletic sports, especially Husker sports, and I hear a phrase constantly about player development. And it'd be like seeing on TV a game being played that you really enjoy and thinking, hey, we're going to go do that, and you start doing it, and then nothing happens until all of a sudden, you break a leg or something and you need to go get healed. We need to be about that player development in our marriages, ongoing throughout the year and continuing to grow and discover all that God has for marriage and family. And what's interesting about that is other organizations have done a lot of research on this. In fact, Barna shows a few kind of alarming statistics, and I can give you some testimonies as to the value of those. For example, Barna reports that 53% of all churches report having ongoing marriage ministry. 53%, barely half. How many churches have married couples in their church, right? Another number, 85% of mainline churches report not paying anyone to run marriage ministry. 85% not paying anyone to run marriage ministry. And the last number, 80% of evangelical churches report spending 0% of their ministry budget on marriage ministry. And this is not to be critical at all. These are just statistics that are out there. You can go find them. And it just shows kind of a picture. Yet, when we talk to pastors and ministry leaders in the church, one of the biggest items that they say is encompassing their time and the needs in their church is couples who are struggling in their marriage and in their family. And our heart is to see these couples who leave a weekend remember go back to their church, go back to their community, and begin helping other couples. Take the oneness that they learned about at the weekend to remember and begin investing in the marriages and families of other couples. As you have said many times, Nate, about the strength of our culture, the strength of Nebraska, the strength of our country lies in the homes of its people.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. So goes the family, so goes the nation. And strong families start with strong marriages. And so, Bob and Pam, I want to thank you both, not only for joining us and sharing about the Weekend to Remember conference, but more importantly, for your work to promote God-honoring homes and marriages. We're so thankful for you both and for your heart for the Lord and to see marriages thrive in our state.